Don't forget to go to ashkicking.com for pound the best home health and beauty fragrance products.
I just told you I didn't want to do no interviews, and you said you are going to do interviews. Now you told me to do interviews. Now you're trying to take me away from them. No. Let me show Dante's Boxing Nation some love.
That's what I'm talking about.
He's been at the Mayweather Boxing Club for years, grinding, working hard. Dante also, paid a lot of his own money, just like a lot of different other companies, to support us. So I must show love back.
Dante's Boxing Nation, what's going on, guys? So some breaking news today. Finally, the IBF has decided to strip Gennady Golovkin of his IBF belt. This has been a long time coming, and I've been telling you guys since day one that when Canelo Alvarez failed that test, that was a snowball effect that was going to take down Gennady Golovkin as well as Canelo Alvarez. For those of you guys who don't know, originally when Canelo Alvarez failed that drug test, Gennady Golovkin, he decided to fight Vanes Martirosyan. Golovkin was supposed to face his number one contender, his IBF number one contender, which is Sergey Derenyevchenko. Now, because Gennady Golovkin seen Sergey as too much of a threat, he's an undefeated Ukrainian fighter with Olympic pedigree. He was known as one of the best fighters in the amateurs. And Golovkin knows who he is personally. Golovkin knows him very well, at least according to Lou DiBella, which is Sergey's promoter. But with that being said, Gennady Golovkin, knowing that would be a tough fight, he decided to face Vanes Martirosyan, a guy who had never fought at 160, a guy who hadn't had a fight in 2 years and was coming off of a loss. So Gennady Golovkin decides to fight a guy who's not ranked, as opposed to facing Sergey, the number one contender, his number one mandatory. So the IBF, they allowed him to fight against Vanes, but they wouldn't sanction the bout. But they told Golovkin, that is, if you fight Vanes, you have 90 days after that to negotiate with your number one contender, Sergey, or else you'll be stripped of the belt. They told him he had to fight against Sergey before he fights against Canelo Alvarez. What makes the situation even more shocking that Golovkin didn't fight his mandatory is the IBF, they gave this man so many chances. They gave him so much leadway. Because truth be told, they could have stripped Triple G when he elected to fight Vanes Martirosyan, but they still gave him chances. So this was well overdue if you really think about it. So the question right now is, where does Golovkin go from here? They just took his belt, and now he has Jermall Charlo issues. Jermall Charlo is his WBC mandatory. So if he's not going to fight Sergey and keep his belt, you guys think he's going to fight for his belt or fight to keep his belt, defend the title against a lion like Jermall Charlo? This is a bad look for Gennady Golovkin, guys. This makes Gennady Golovkin look extremely overrated. Extremely overrated. You guys have to remember, ESPN and other organizations, but mainly ESPN, they rated Gennady Golovkin as top 25, one of the greatest fighters of all time in the last 25 years. Okay? Now, when Golovkin has an opportunity to prove how good he is, this is when he decides not to take the competition on. I mean, guys, if you really put this in perspective, imagine if Sugar Ray Leonard, he fought and he beat Wilfredo Benitez for the title, right? Once he wins the title, all of a sudden, new challenges emerge, like Roberto Duran, Tommy Hearns, Marvin Hagler. Imagine if these guys were mandatories, or if these were just fighters that the media and the boxing world were pressuring Sugar Ray Leonard to challenge, pressuring him to fight. And Sugar Ray Leonard, he decided to give up his belt rather than face them. Do you think Sugar Ray Leonard would still be received the same way he is today if he decided to do something like that, guys? We know that's a rhetorical question. But what makes this situation so hypocritical when it comes to Team Golovkin is this was their main goal. Let them tell it. Their main goal was to unify all of the belts. This is what Gennady Golovkin has been saying for the last year or two, if not longer. We want to unify the belts. They use that as a main defense. Why they didn't fight Andre Ward, why they didn't fight this guy. Everyone would defend Gennady Golovkin and say, hey man, leave Golovkin alone. He wants to unify the belts. He wants to make history. He wants to be the first person to unify the belts in this amount of time, etc., etc., etc. You guys know the defense. Right? So what happens when the guy you're defending, he goes against the excuse that you have been using for him? I mean, this makes Golovkin look really bad, guys. This makes him look really, really bad. I mean, Gennady Golovkin's toughest fights, it can be argued he didn't even win those fights against Danny Jacobs and against Canelo Alvarez. Now, Danny Jacobs is someone else I didn't mention. Danny Jacobs is also one of his mandatories. You guys think he's going to keep that WBA belt, defend it against Danny Jacobs, and fight him in a rematch? Gennady Golovkin is going to either retire or he's going to give up all of his belts and continue to fight the weakest opposition. See, once again, when you see the knockout that Golovkin got in that Vanes Martirosyan fight, that is proof that you cannot use the excuse that now Golovkin is old. Because when he knocked out Vanes Martirosyan, everyone, all the writers, they were praising Gennady Golovkin like he was vintage, like he was still that monster, knocking guys out. Look how impressive the knockout was. So he's still getting the knockouts. Now, and if he would have struggled with Vanes Martirosyan and it would have went back and forth and he didn't look like the same Golovkin, then you could say, you know what? Golovkin might be slipping. But no, we seen the same Golovkin that knocked out Marco Antonio Rubio, the same Golovkin that knocked out Willie Monroe, that knocked out Wade, and all the other guys that Golovkin was able to knock out. That's exactly how the Vanes Martirosyan fight looked, right? So you cannot use age as an excuse. It is simple and obvious what's going on right now. Gennady Golovkin, his team, they believe that Charlo, that Sergey, and even a rematch against Danny Jacobs would be too difficult of a fight for Golovkin to win. And what's sad about this is when you look at the contrast, when you look at the fact that you have Danny Jacobs, who just signed with Eddie Hearn, he's been fighting undefeated fighters back to back to back. You have the Charlo brothers constantly fighting tough competition. You have Deontay Wilder constantly chasing the best heavyweights. You have Terrence Crawford constantly moving up in weight to fight the best competition. Even Lomachenko has moved up in weight. He's been fighting the best competition, at least compared to Gennady Golovkin. Sergey Kovalev, now he's about to fight Eleider Alvarez, and he's only 2 fights away from coming off of a knockout loss. It's only Gennady Golovkin is doing this in the sport, and he's making himself look really bad. And what's even worse is the fact that you have so many members of the media that are trying to defend him because they don't want to see Golovkin get in the ring and possibly lose to these guys either. So they rather him continue to fight the Vanes Martirosyans and retire undefeated. So they could say, at least he didn't get beat by somebody on the coincidental list. So this is a bad look for Gennady Golovkin. Let's see how long it takes for them to strip him of the WBC belt. Because that's definitely the next belt that they will take away. And let's see what Golovkin does. He's going to either retire. It really revolves around what happens in this Canelo Alvarez situation. Because if he doesn't get the Canelo Alvarez fight, that's really going to make him look bad. Because then he's going to continue to fight the Vanes Martirosyans. He's not going to fight. He's not going to fight Sergey. And now it's going to even be harder for him to get that belt back, because now most likely they're going to have Sergey possibly fight against Demetrius Andrade, and they're going to, one of those guys are going to be the new IBF champion. If that's the case, then Gennady Golovkin will be trapped. There's no way he's going to fight the winner of that fight. Okay? So once again, he's going to either retire or he's just going to continue to cherry pick. Let's see what happens after the Canelo Alvarez situation. Golovkin better hope that Canelo Alvarez, they don't say, you know what, forget it. We're going to make this man look bad, and we're going to go a different direction and leave Golovkin all by himself and force him to fend for himself and try to explain why he's not fighting his mandatories. If Canelo's team wanted to do that, they could do that. They would make Golovkin look really bad. Now, we heard the rumors that Canelo is negotiating with Danny Jacobs, but like I told you guys before, that may just be a negotiation plot or ploy, you know, to will Golovkin in, you know, force Golovkin to take the offer. But let's see what happens. This will be really interesting to see how this all plays out. That's all I got for now, guys. I'm on to the next one.